It's Saturday, March 5th, 2022. I'm about to ride the Grand Canyon Railway on a 64-mile trip from Williams, Arizona to the south rim of the Grand Canyon. Today also happens to be a Steam Saturday. On the first Saturday of the month, Grand Canyon Railway puts one of its historic steam locomotives at the front of the regular 9:30 train. Today, a 1923 Baldwin 282 number 4960 will be used. The shop crew starts about 3 a.m. to get the steam engine ready. At 8 a.m., the engineer and firemen arrive and back the locomotive about a mile through the yard to couple up to the train. After the train is assembled, it pulls out of the car yard and backs into the depot at 9 a.m. for loading. Today's train is 12 cars. While I normally would ride in one of the first-class cars, which offer more legroom and complimentary hors d'oeuvres, today I've chosen to ride in the Pullman car. It's a Pullman-built 1920s former Southern Pacific commuter car from San Francisco. It's the only car on the train that has windows that open, which will help us get the full effect of riding behind a vintage steam locomotive. Here it is, the one with the smooth sides and the smooth roof. A lot of people wonder why the steam locomotive needs a diesel to run behind it. For a train of this size, 4960 cannot pull it by itself up the 3% ruling grades on this line, so former New Jersey Transit F40 number 4128 will go along for extra horsepower. A control box in the cab of the steamer allows one engineer to control both locomotives. Behind the diesel is a power car. This has a generator that is used to provide electricity for the passenger cars. Boarding begins at 9:15 and the train departs promptly at 9:30. The ride to the Grand Canyon will take about 2 hours and 15 minutes. tracks in front of the Williams Depot run east-west, as they were originally part of the Santa Fe's transcontinental line from Chicago to Los Angeles. Our train starts out heading east, then quickly turns north. Here's the Y, where the train will be turned around in the evening after returning to Williams. Now we're passing a line of spare passenger cars waiting for eventual restoration. On the other side of these is land that will hopefully become the Arizona State Railroad Museum in the next few years. After we cross under I-40, we're going to pass the mechanical shops where the locomotives and passenger cars are maintained. Next, we're going to pass through a small tunnel under the BNSF Transcontinental Main Line. This line was built by the Santa Fe in 1960 to alleviate steep grades between Williams and Seligman. The BNSF line that runs in front of the Williams Depot is now part of the branch line to Phoenix. The coach attendant will tell you that this is the second longest railroad tunnel in Arizona. They're wrong. It's actually the third. At Milepost 2, the train will reach about 6,800 feet in elevation, which is the highest point on the south end of the railroad. From here, we're going to continue descending for about 30 miles. The tall ponderosa pines will give way to smaller pinyon pines and junipers, and eventually to high desert grasslands. Top speed for the Grand Canyon Railway is 40 miles per hour, but there are a lot of places where tight turns and steep grades require slower speeds. We've now entered a place in the middle of the railroad known as Miller Wash. A flood here in 1916 resulted in a train accident that killed the fireman. A few years later, the Santa Fe moved the tracks a little higher up on the side, but you can still see where they used to be. Milepost 36 is the lowest point on the railroad, about 5,700 feet elevation. It's also about the halfway point in our journey, at least chronologically speaking. From here, the train begins climbing up out of the wash and up to the south rim of the Grand Canyon. As we round this curve, both locomotives are working full throttle to try and maintain the speed limit of 25 miles per hour. See how the smoke occasionally turns dark? The fireman is shoveling sand into the firebox to scour the soot off the flues. Just after Miller Wash, the train is accelerating back up to 40 miles per hour. This is a place called Willaha. There used to be an old bunkhouse here and cattle pens. It's also a popular location for rail fans to come and watch the train. It's about a 7-mile drive from the highway on a dirt road to get here. This is Woodin, about milepost 44. From here, the grade gets really steep for the next 8 miles. As we approach milepost 48, the train is going to go through an S-curve. This is the steepest grade on the main line, right at 3%. Again, both locomotives are working full throttle, and we're probably down to just under 20 miles per hour here. At milepost 52, the train topped over the big hill, and now we are winding down through Coconino Canyon. The speed limit for the next 6 miles is only 20 miles per hour. This is considered the most scenic part of the trip. A series of horseshoe curves will give us a good view of the train. Near milepost 58, we've climbed out of Coconino Canyon for our last push up to the south rim. The grade will be a steady 2.5% with winding curves. We will also parallel a dirt road that crosses the tracks multiple times. So we're going to get several opportunities to hear that whistle echo off the canyon walls. So we just passed milepost 60, which is the boundary for Grand Canyon National Park. We still got 4 miles to go. As we're climbing back up to 7,000 feet elevation, notice how the ponderosa pines have returned. Also notice the predominance of old growth trees here in the park. Most of the ponderosas outside the park boundary were logged back in the early 1900s, so you don't see as many old growth trees in those areas. Milepost 63, we've entered the Grand Canyon yard limits. We're going to head up the Y and back the train into the Grand Canyon Depot. The Y is a steep 3% grade on a tight turn. With the cold rail and fresh snow, this is a challenge for the engineer to gain traction. They usually put sand on the rails under the wheels to help. But I bet the moisture has the sanders clogged up. Hear how the exhaust speeds keep changing? We're having a hard time getting traction, and that's the wheel slipping.
Yep.
And when you can't get traction, you can't accelerate, you can't keep speed. Well, that was close. We finally made it up the Y and backed into the depot. Now that the passengers are unloaded, they're going to take the engines back to the tail of the Y, top off the tender with water, and grease the engine for the return trip. And while they do that, we're going to go find some lunch and take a look at the canyon. A lot of people are concerned on bad weather days like today, afraid that they won't be able to see anything in the canyon due to heavy cloud cover. However, I've been to the canyon hundreds of times, and I can say that it's days like today that are the most interesting. It's true that you might not see much of the canyon for most of the day, but at some point, the clouds are going to clear out, at least partially, and at those times a few rays of sunlight will poke through. The colors will pop, the contrast will develop, and you're going to see one of the most incredible sights you can ever imagine. Today we went over to the Yavapai Geology Museum. Most days I would walk there from the train station. It's a nice, handicap-accessible 1.5-mile walk along the rim. But with the bad weather today, we took the complimentary shuttle. It was about a 30-minute bus ride, and we had to change buses at the visitor center, but we arrived just as a few rays of sunshine peeked through. Alright, now we're back at the train. The steam engine is returned and coupled up with the train. Boarding is going to begin at 3 p.m. and departure is at 3:30. Here's a tip for the rail fans. Grand Canyon Railway doesn't allow guests up in the cab of their locomotives. But if the crew's not busy and you hand them your camera, they'll take pictures for you. 4960 is an oil-burning locomotive, and Grand Canyon Railway uses recycled vegetable oil as a fuel. Whoa, check out those elk. You can see a lot of wildlife here at the park and along the railroad. This is the only spot where you can see the Grand Canyon from the train. And as you can see, it's pretty much covered in clouds right now. Coming up is an old mining settlement called Highland Mary. It's just outside the park boundary. One of the treats here on Grand Canyon Railway is the strolling musicians that come through each car to entertain you.
Head down south to the land of pine, down the mountain in North Carolina, looking up the road, praying God I see midnights. Head down the coast in 79, big wind moving dogwood flowers on the hopeful cloud. See my baby tonight. To rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel.
is an active cattle ranch at a place called Valley. Uh-oh, the train is stopping. Looks like we've got some desperados gonna get on. Pumpkin Patch. In years past, the railway would run trains to here on weekends during October. The special event has been discontinued due to COVID, but probably will be back again at some point. Just after the Pumpkin Patch, we're going up a short 3% grade. That's Bill Williams Mountain in the background. The summit is just over 9,000 feet. Car storage yard. Those two diesels are going to be the motive power for tomorrow's train. Those blue and green cars are the same as the ones we're riding on today. They're used for the Polar Express trains during the winter. Eventually, the green cars are all getting painted into the blue and red over the next few years. We're pulling into the Williams Depot now. Grand Canyon Railway has several other steam locomotives on display.
Yeah, there's the information. That's the old passenger depot. We'll open the vehicle up some more. That's where that
This is the 29, which was operational until 2019. It's due for a major boiler inspection, which should take place in the next few years. And we're back at the depot right on time at 5:45. Once the passengers have all deboarded, the train will back out and turn on the Y. The cars will be parked in the car yard, and 4960 will go back to the shop for the night. Well, that's it for our adventure on Grand Canyon Railway. If you want more information, I'm putting a few links in the description to learn more about the equipment and the operating schedules. So long. And if you want more information on the Grand Canyon Railway and its history, check out these two books. This is Cowboys, Miners, Presidents, and Kings by Al Richmond, and Grand Canyon Railway 60 Years in Color by Al Richmond and Mark Pearsall. These books are available in the gift shops at Grand Canyon Railway and also at Grand Canyon South Rim.